So, Subway Cafe.
Yeah.
Open since 1948. I feel like we only shoot these things at a place that Martin Scorsese would shoot a movie.
The bartender, I think Scotty has been here since 1948 too, and I mean that in a good way, sort of.
And he's serving up these things called fish bowls.
Yeah.
You told me about a fish bowl. I thought it was, a bowl of fish.
Yeah. You've got so much to learn here in Harrisburg, Pat.
Am I ignorant? Is that a thing?
It is. I believe it's a 24-ounce beer. And if you live close by like I do, you can just kind of have at it.
24 ounces of beer, solid. I think we could both say we might have needed that after last game.
Yeah, I wonder if James Franklin had a few of those after the Michigan game.
Well, he didn't recommend that this week, but James Franklin at his Tuesday press conference said everyone needs to take a deep breath.
Yeah.
And that's fine. I'll take a deep breath, but it won't be a yoga breath. It'll be a brown paper bag, hyperventilating breath, because that was ugly.
Yeah.
Outplayed, outcoached, outmanned, and they just look like they're light years away from being a top team in the Big Ten.
I don't know, honestly, as long as Urban and Harbaugh and D'Antoni are there, I don't think that Penn State, I don't see it. I don't see Penn State being able to keep up with those guys. You're talking about three of the top 5 or 6 coaches in the country, and it shows.
Yeah.
And it doesn't just show on the recruiting trail, it shows on game day. I mean, that has been part of the problem with Penn State since James has been here. It's not just been about stocking the shelves, but I think he leaves a lot to be desired on game day. He makes some questionable decisions, whether it's with his timeouts in years past, or you saw a situation they weren't going to win the game, but why on earth would you kick a field goal in the third quarter when it's 28-0 and the defense is just holding on for dear life? I don't understand that. Not only that, he called a timeout and then he kept the field goal team on the field. I just think that goes with it. It's not just the recruiting, it's everything. And if the staff can't get markedly better, I mean, I think what you see is what you're going to get from Penn State.
And that field goal was 3 points that represent such a bigger picture, right?
Yeah.
He admitted that he second-guessed himself on the play. It looked like it was a call just to get points on the board so you could say you weren't shut out. It's hard to say he wasn't out-coached in that game because they weren't turning the ball over, right? So what else do you say? They were just out there executing a game plan, running themselves into a brick wall. It didn't work.
Yeah, I will say that I was surprised that the offense didn't do a little bit better. They got pushed around, sacks on the first 2 sacks on the first possession. But if you looked, if you got a good look at the field on some of those plays, they missed some plays. I thought they would score some points, and that was the biggest surprise to me. That really, 10 points in the Big Ten on the road. Colorado went in there the week before and was representative, and I think Penn State fans should be able to think of themselves on terms with Colorado in the big picture.
You would think, you would hope.
And they're not. So I think Penn State fans are really unhappy, and this is a big game. For Penn State and for James Franklin this week against Minnesota. If you just look at it, Pat, if he would lose this game, and they're a slight favorite, I think they will win the game. But if he would lose this game, I think it's going to get very uncomfortable for him in State College the rest of the season.
I think we all understand the injuries are kind of a fluke this year. It's kind of an absurd situation, even if this team was deeper than some of the ones he's had in the past. But at a certain point, 0-7 against ranked teams, 0-7 against the Big Three and the Big Ten, 7-13 against Power 5 conference teams, which would include Minnesota.
Yeah.
So if you can't win any of those games, I understand preaching patience.
Yeah.
We get the recruiting, but I don't think we're seeing, like you said, the coaching.
Yeah, I think almost as significant as the number. It's like, if you look at it this way, 0-9. So it's 0-7 versus Michigan State, and Ohio State, and they lost twice to Northwestern. But they're 6-11 in the Big Ten, and the 6 wins, they're 2 over Rutgers. They beat Maryland, they beat Illinois, and they have 2 wins over Indiana, and they could have lost a couple of those games. He didn't get paid all that money to beat up on the Indianas and Rutgers of the Big Ten Conference. They have to get some wins, and I think they really need it. He needs this Minnesota game pretty bad.
It was a little bit like looking in maybe like a funhouse mirror last week, not a reflection, but a distorted reflection, because Michigan had Brady Hoke who could recruit, and then Jim Harbaugh comes in, steps in, and gets the most out of those players in 2 years. I mean, Jabril Peppers is a Brady Hoke recruit, and he's a superstar now.
Yeah.
So I don't know if that's the same thing that's going on at Penn State, but it's hard not to see that parallel and start to see the writing on the wall here a little bit in the future, especially if they don't beat Minnesota this week.
I mean, if you look at what Penn State has gotten from James Franklin's first two classes, the 2014 class and the 2015 class, Saquon Barkley is part of that, and he's obviously a home run. Chris Godwin, I believe, was part of the 2014 class, but he was really a Bill O'Brien recruit, not a James Franklin recruit. He just hasn't had those guys ready to play yet, and it's you look around the country, and it's starting to become a young player's game. It's not the first year. By the second year, there's been some pretty good players ready to play, and it's just showing up at Penn State. They're getting hurt, but no one on the offensive line, in terms of recruits, the last couple of years has been able to make an impact, and that's why you're seeing two former defensive tackles play key snaps, and they're just getting wiped out. So I don't think the fan base wants to hear about the injuries. I don't think the fan base wants to hear about the process. I don't think the fan base wants to hear it's year one when it's really year three. I think the fan base just wants to see him win some games against competitive teams, especially in the Big Ten. I think they expected him to lose to Michigan, but, at some point, you shouldn't be life and death to beat the Marylands of the world or the Indianas of the world, and you got to figure it out. They got to score more points, and they got to find a way to get stops. It's as simple as that.
It's a lot of talking, right? It's a lot of talking about process, this and that, bravado. And obviously, I like to talk. My job is to talk, so it's hard for me to criticize that. But, I saw this movie one time called Drive with Ryan Gosling. Mm-hmm. The guy says like 5 words the entire movie. It's very mysterious, and it really works for him. I think maybe James Franklin needs to watch Drive.
Yeah.
The mystery's gone.
Yeah.
He talks too much. There's not much else to say at this point. I don't think he thought it would take this long, personally. So he talked ahead of maybe where he thought he would be today, right now.
Yeah, I think you can look at his first press conference for proof that he never thought it would take this long. The whole dominating the state has come back really to bite him in the backside, I believe. Not only is he not dominating, but it's kind of going the other way. I think one of the key junctures during his time here at Penn State was when Brady Hoke got fired and they brought Harbaugh in at Michigan, and they had already started to establish a pipeline into New Jersey, but with Peppers, but Rashawn Gary and some other players he's getting. I don't think James is going to pull some good players out of New Jersey as long as Jim's there. I think Jim's going to be there for a little while, and the question becomes, so where is he going to get his players? He's not even getting them from Western PA anymore, so I think it's a result of him not winning games. It's not a result of him not being able to charm recruits and their families. I think ultimately they just want to go someplace where they feel like they have a shot, to have a successful season, to be developed, and to be in some games.
Make the NFL.
Some meaningful games, and it's just not happening.
You look at the recruiting list, 2017, guess who's ahead of Penn State? Maryland.
Yeah.
I know they brought in Michigan's defensive coordinator
DJ Durkin
as their head coach. Maybe that's just a one-year surge, but that's another one that's going to come in, take some Pennsylvania players. Penn State is currently 4th in class of 2018, but that's kind of deceiving, right? It's too early to really rank those classes. So all of a sudden you got Rutgers in there, you got Pitt coming in. It is a little bit of a disturbing trend.
Well, and Maryland plays Penn State in a couple of weeks, and that's another game that the way this thing is going, it should be pretty close. Now, he lost to Pitt, and that wasn't, I think, good for in-state recruiting. He loses to Maryland. That's a pretty fertile hunting ground for Penn State, or it has been. I mean, if you're a kid from Maryland and you see that Maryland's now caught Penn State, why would you go to Penn State?
It's scary. I'm trying to understand James Franklin because I like him, right? I like his energy. I like some of the image change he's brought to Penn State. But I guess my takeaway at this point, he's more of like a brand manager, if a coach is your CEO, than like a strategist or a guy that, like, he's a delegator, but I don't know if he can actually get in there and do the jobs better himself than his assistants. where I think with Jim Harbaugh, Urban Meyer, Mark D'Antonio, you would say all of those guys do every single job better than everyone else.
Yeah, I think Urban Meyer is kind of a delegator, believe it or not. But he's got, you look at his assistants, they're slam dunks. Tom Herman was one of the, I think he was the play caller on the 2014 team that won it all. It's fine to be a delegator, but you better have assistants who can develop players and win and have them in the right position, to play. Penn State's biggest problem at the moment is at the line of scrimmage. They're just getting killed, and you see it when Saquon Barkley in the Michigan game, one of his best runs, I don't know if you remember, was a 2-yard gain around the right side, but he went.
He went
to
like 50
one
yards
side
to
of the
get 2
field
yards.
and then all the way back. He ran like 80 yards to get 2 yards. And it's almost a travesty to have a talent like Saquon in the backfield and they can't string him because the other team knows that they have the better athletes at scrimmage, and if they just jam scrimmage, by the time Trace McSorley goes back and tries to tee it up and throw the ball, he's got somebody in his face. So I don't know that there is an answer. I think the answer for Penn State the rest of the year is he had better win the games he's expected to win, because he's not going to win the games that he's the underdog in. I just don't think so. And if he can't win those games, I think it's fair to say that Penn State needs to find somebody who can win the games they're expected to win and then go from there.
Sure. Food just arrived. This is the award-winning pizza of the Subway Cafe. This is a unique style here. Now, you've had this before. Mm-hmm. Thin crust, loaded with meat, personal size. Now, I'm probably going to burn my tongue.
I would say you're definitely going to burn your tongue. So, it's up to you. I do think you're right, though. I think it's the best pizza in the city. I'm glad that I live close by. And the next time you and I come here, I will make sure you have some fish bowls. Let's put it that way.
I think so, yeah. Maybe after the clock. I'm more of a New York slice kind of guy, like traditionally, but I respect that this is the Harrisburg style. This is pretty cool.
Yeah.
Scotty.
You like it?
Very good, man. Thank you. Oh, yeah. Okay, thank you. Now, what'd you do? The meat? What'd you do?
Sausage and pepperoni.
And pepperoni.
Meat lovers, yeah.
Okay.
Maybe not the smartest idea at noon, but, you got to live a little.
Well, we're not having a fish bowl, so.
No, this is good.
Mm-hmm. So, Minnesota, not a team that's really on anyone's national radar, but this is a game that you've circled since we first started talking at the beginning of the year. This is a team that is experienced. They got a fifth-year quarterback who can run. They got a running game. This is a matchup to take seriously.
Yeah, so their quarterback, Mitch Leidner, is probably bigger than all three of Penn State's linebackers. He's 6'4", about 235. And it's a style matchup. I talked about it before with you. What Penn State can't do really very well is stop the run.
Yeah.
It's a twofold problem. They're beat up. They're young at the line of scrimmage. And the whole offseason, they didn't really prep for power running teams because they were always practicing against the Penn State offense, which is a spread with no fullback, no blocking tight end.
Sure.
So, yeah, this was always going to be a problem game for them, even if they were healthy, even if all the linebackers were going to play. Minnesota can run the ball. They are huge up front. The quarterback is a running threat they have to account for. They have 2 or 3 really good running backs. If they dictate the tempo and the pace of this game and they get to play with a lead, it's going to be bad. Penn State better not fall behind this team because they might not get the ball back because they can keep it. They're very good in the red zone, which is another problem for Penn State's defense. And they're converting at 55% on third down. This is a recipe for disaster if Penn State does not play one of their best games and start fast, because this team will never let them back into the game because they're going to execute, they're going to control the clock, and Penn State's got to be very careful.
Last in rushing defense for Penn State, last in rushing offense for Penn State in the Big Ten. Those are just a recipe to lose to everybody, right?
Yeah.
So, like you said, ball control. We saw it against Michigan. You can't win if you're giving up 7 yards a carry.
Yeah.
And the offense looking like they did, where that was the thing we kind of hung our hat on, right? That they'd be able to score points.
In a lot of ways, if you think about what Michigan did to Penn State, it was more humiliating than the score indicates because I think Jim Harbaugh was a pretty smart guy.
Yeah.
And in the second half, he just said, here we come, we're going to run the ball, and you're not going to stop us, and we're still going to score points. There was nothing flashy about it in the second half. And the quarterback, Wilton Spade, admitted afterwards they basically ran the same play 8 times in a row. And that's just something that, you know, that's something that you do in 1976, not 2016. Yeah. Penn State knew it was coming. They couldn't stop it. I think it's a big fear against Minnesota on Saturday. That's what Minnesota's going to do. And one other thing is that Penn State has to figure this out. I don't know if Joe Morehead's going to have to tweak his offense or not, but you see it happen in every game. He's in the shotgun. It's 3rd and 1. And they have that mesh play where he has to decide whether to give the ball to Saquon Barkley or keep it.
Right.
It takes too long. There's no lead blocker. And they can't get the yard or two because the defense is already in the backfield. It's almost like a doomed play. They can't convert on 3rd and short if they run the ball. And they have to find a way around that because the Big Ten has now seen this offense on film, and they're just gonna go all out to stop it. And these are plays that Penn State should be making to continue drives, to keep the defense off the field, to change field position. They're simple plays, and they cannot convert them. And it's one of the reasons why Penn State is 127th out of 128 teams in FBS converting 3rd down chances, 24%. That's awful. And there's no way they're going to win unless they can get up to 35%.
That was a question I wanted to ask this week was, did we get too far ahead of ourselves lauding Joe Morehead's offense? Now, I do think he seems like a smart, cerebral guy, but running an up-tempo zone read spread is hardly a new idea. You know, it's kind of the new standard.
Yeah.
So, you know, maybe we got a little bit ahead of ourselves there. I think one solution would be the pistol, have him behind him and give it to him a straight handoff with a head of steam on him. But I don't know if I'm going to doubt him completely, but I do think maybe we got a little ahead of ourselves.
Well, it's that, plus he just doesn't get, the offensive line doesn't get enough push.
Yeah.
And, you know, James Franklin insists they're getting better. I don't know how he measures progress, and they have played 2 good run defenses, but that's one of the reasons why the defense is in the backfield. And I just think that as Trace McSorley is definitely an upgrade athletically over Christian Hackenberg, but this is not J.T. Barrett running this offense. I mean, he's not got the wiggle or the quickness to kind of make people miss in the backfield. He is more athletic, and he can avoid trouble when he's throwing the ball, but that's another problem. I think ideally in the Joe Morehead offense, you're a little bit better on the offensive line, and you're a little bit more athletic at quarterback. And I think that's one of the problems that Penn State's kind of having to adjust to.
He doesn't have that breakaway touchdown speed.
This is not Eric Crouch running the offense.
Or Lamar Jackson.
Or J.T. Barrett.
So, I think teams know they can just shade the Barkley.
It's something to watch for the rest of the Big Ten season. They're going to be in 3rd and 1 and 3rd and 2. And I think, you know, when you throw the ball, there's an element of there's one more thing that has to go right for your offense. You got to catch the ball, the pass. You got to throw the ball right. The coverage has got to be off. But a run with Saquon Barkley should be an automatic. But moving forward, how are they gonna deal with that? Are they going to give up on it? Are they going to tweak their offense? Or are they going to continue to run that mesh play and lose 3 yards and
or
have
fumble
to
like they've done plenty of
and
times
punt the football? I think that's one of the things that's really hurting this offense.
Let's pick the game.
Yep.
Now, I'm picking 35-34 Penn State. Not because I believe that's necessarily going to happen, but I am going to give James Franklin the benefit of the doubt at home because this might be the last time I can do it if they lose this game. So I'm going to give him one more benefit of the doubt here at home. That's a Minnesota cover. The spread is Penn State by 3.
Yeah. By the way, you've caught on the over. Nice job.
I have,
Nice job.
We got the over last week.
It's only 55. I kind of see it the way you see it. 33-31.
Okay.
I'm going to go with Penn State. I do think, though, this is what I'm curious to see because I do think Minnesota is going to have their way at times on offense. I wonder what's going to happen if Penn State is down late in the game and Trace has to engineer a drive to win it. 33-31, kind of suggesting it might be a late field goal or a touchdown. He came close against Pittsburgh. He couldn't do it, very close. I think he might have to do it on Saturday. And Penn State is going to find themselves in some close games the rest of the way. They're just not good enough to blow out teams in the Big Ten. I mean, there just aren't. Even the teams that they play that maybe aren't so good, they get them on the road. Purdue, Indiana, and Rutgers. So that's going to be a challenge. So I think the question becomes, this team ultimately might be judged record-wise on whether or not they can win close games, because they're going to have to. And this is going to be one of those games, I think. And I want to see if they can finally win some games and rally to win them. That's kind of been a little bit of a problem since the early days that James Franklin had in the Big Ten when they beat Rutgers 13-10. So that's my pick, but I do think that Penn State will definitely have to work for it late. I could see them being behind and then having to win the game.
Well, the water is rising on this season. What are the flood lines over there?
72 and 36.
I think we're at 1936 flood level right now.
If they lose, it's 72.
They're at 72. Tread water while you can.